What's going on, Geeks and Gamers? This is Ryan with the RK Outpost and geeksandgamers.com, and Ghostbusters 2016 was such a big defining moment over the past 5 years in entertainment, because it was a point which so many people realized there is this divide between the woke critics and the audience members, that they valued things very, very differently. And the woke critics were trying to tell you, if you don't like this movie, if you don't go see it because of the diversity and the representation, well, it must just be because you're a bigot. While the audience members were sitting there and saying, this is not Ghostbusters, this is not what we want, and they rejected it for the garbage that it was. Well, now 5 years later, we have a new Ghostbusters coming out, one that the critics are very upset about because it's ignoring entirely Ghostbusters 2016. So the critics are out for blood when it comes to this movie, but guess what? The audiences absolutely love it. Ghostbusters Afterlife audience score is finally available and doesn't look like anything sketchy going on, as we've seen quite often with Rotten Tomatoes. But if you listen to the feedback, if you listen to people talk about this movie, the vast majority of people have very positive things to say about it. Now, myself and actually Jeremy, I think, did a review on this channel as well. I don't think it's a great movie, to be honest with you, but one thing that it does fantastically well is by honoring what came before it, by honoring the original cast members of Ghostbusters, by trying to do a tribute to them, by making sure they respect them in every possible way they can. And that's what you should be trying to do when you take up a franchise like this. And when you look at the critic reviews, especially when you go to the top critics, look at top critics, 38% for top critics. One of the things they hammer the most on is nostalgia. And I agree, nostalgia can be overbearing when it's done the wrong way. Like, look at Star Wars and what they're trying to do, where there's basically no story, no plot, and every single thing they're pounding you over the head with is just pure nostalgia bait. But when it comes to Ghostbusters Afterlife, even as someone who maybe gave it a 6.5 out of 10, I think that's the score I ended up giving it, you can tell the love and the care and dedication that went into this movie. I personally thought they spent a little too much time on the kids. I think it should have been more centered around, 30-year-old people, much like the original Ghostbusters was. People that maybe they don't know quite what they're doing in life, what they want to do, where they're going, they're struggling, things like that. Because I think that's really what made Ghostbusters Ghostbusters. This one, they decided to focus on the kids. A lot of people liked the kids. I personally did not. But you cannot deny that is way more true to the heart of Ghostbusters and pays way more honor to that legacy. So you shouldn't really be surprised when we see things like this. A 95% for Ghostbusters Afterlife against that 49% for the travesty, the garbage that was Ghostbusters 2016. And obviously a pretty big discrepancy when you're looking at top critics and critic scores and everything like that as well. And we now know what it's doing in the box office. Ghostbusters Afterlife trapping 40 million plus opening weekend, Saturday AM update. Now, I think this number is going to be a lot less than people expected. I kind of said I do not think it's going to do gangbusters in the movie theaters because, quite frankly, I just don't think Ghostbusters has this big franchise power pull that a lot of people would expect it or think or hope that it has. Saturday AM update. Jason Reitman's Ghostbusters Afterlife is beating its $30 to $35 million industry expectations with an expected $40.5 million opening weekend after a $16.5 million Friday, which includes Thursday previews. So I know some people may look at that number and think, oh, I thought it was going to do like Eternals box office numbers. I think if you ever thought that was the expectation, you were kind of fooling yourself a little bit. I didn't expect it to do that. I said if it makes 50, I think that'd be a crazy, crazy success. It's sitting there at 40. This is a movie that only cost about $75 million to make. So it needs to make, what, around 200? I guess I'll let Odin do this tomorrow when he does the box office breakdown. But I would imagine somewhere around $200 million it needs to make worldwide before it starts to break even and make money. I think with this tracking, with this opening, it's definitely something that can do that. They can make $200 million. And when you're looking at comparisons between this movie, Afterlife, and Ghostbusters 2016, you gotta also keep in mind that Ghostbusters 2016 had nearly a $150 million budget, twice the budget of this movie, and it only made $220 million in the box office. So I really do think they're probably looking at $220 million goal. Right now, they're tracking just about even with it. I think that movie made around $43 million opening weekend. So if it can keep up with that and do the numbers that it did, and I think it'll probably have a better hold, you have to imagine that if it doesn't do that, they're probably going to look back and be pretty disappointed with Ghostbusters Afterlife, even with the bigger profit margin with this movie, since it did cost less. If you don't see the fan reaction, if truly people aren't coming out to see that, even with all the changes you've made, honoring the past, all this stuff, then I think they might look at it as a little bit of a failure. Overall, it's awesome to see the difference between how an audience receives something when you actually try to honor what comes before it, when you honor the things that made this audience love it in the first place. It's the same thing with Star Wars or Marvel or Star Trek or whatever it may be. If you take over a franchise and then decide to just change everything and disrespect everything that made people love that franchise to begin with, you shouldn't be surprised when this is the overall reaction. Extremely, extremely divisive. In the case of Ghostbusters Afterlife, even though I don't think it's a great movie, you can't deny that it gives you a good feeling walking out of that movie theater, that it gives you a feeling like these people knew exactly what they were doing by honoring the past, honoring people like Harold Ramis, honoring the original Ghostbusters, even if I felt the story in between was lacking. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. What do you think it'll eventually do at the box office? Do you think this is an indicator, once again, that maybe Hollywood, maybe just maybe, they should listen to the fans and what they want and their audience instead of whatever they want to shove into it? Let me know in the comments below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.